It was a cold December afternoon in New York. Store windows glowed with Christmas lights, filled with colorful toys that seemed to smile at the children passing by. Outside, mothers and fathers took photos, couples embraced, and children ran with eyes full of wonder. Among them walked Danielle, a 32-year-old black woman holding the hand of little Michael, her 7-year-old son. Danielle was a single mother who worked as a waitress in a small restaurant. Life wasn't easy. She barely had enough to pay rent, but she never let food or love be missing from her son's life. Michael had been dreaming for months about a remote-controlled car. He saw it in commercials on TV and drew it in his school notebook. Danielle, even with tight finances, had saved every tip, every dollar she could spare, just to give her son that Christmas present. That afternoon, she finally managed to take him to the most famous toy store in the city. "Mom, do you think it's still there?" Michael asked, anxious. "Let's see, my love. God knows our effort. Today will be a special day," Danielle answered with a tired but hopeful smile. The store was crowded. Children laughed. Parents carried bags filled with expensive gifts. Danielle walked in with her son, trying not to draw attention. She wore a simple coat, worn from time. Soon, a salesman in a sharp suit looked her up and down, frowning. "May I help you?" he asked coldly. "Yes. I'd like to see the remote-controlled car in the window," Danielle replied, showing the carefully folded money in her hand. The employee laughed, not bothering to hide his disdain. "Are you sure, ma'am? That toy isn't cheap. Perhaps you should look over there." He pointed toward an aisle with low-priced second-hand toys. Danielle blushed with shame. Michael noticed and lowered his head. "I want that one, Mom." "But it's okay if it's too expensive," the boy murmured, trying to shield his mother from the humiliation. She took a deep breath, holding back tears, and answered the clerk. "I know how much it costs. I worked hard for this. I want to see the car." The employee sighed, rolling his eyes. But before he could fetch the toy, the store manager approached. Tall, arrogant, with a smile dripping with superiority, he spoke loudly enough for other customers to hear. "Ma'am, we don't want to waste time here. This product is for real customers. It's not for just anyone." Danielle felt the ground vanish beneath her feet. The humiliation in front of her son was unbearable. People stared. Some laughed. Others pretended not to notice. Michael gripped his mother's hand tightly, his eyes filling with tears. "Mom, let's go. I don't need the toy. I don't want to see you sad." Danielle's heart shattered. She looked at the money in her hand, the fruit of sleepless nights and hard labor, and tucked it back into her pocket. With her voice trembling, she said, "You're right, son. Let's go." As she walked out, discreetly wiping away tears, she didn't notice that in the back of the store, a gray-haired man in a modest suit was watching everything silently. His eyes carried an intense light, like someone who had seen far too many injustices in his life. He didn't say anything at that moment. He only followed Danielle with his gaze until she disappeared through the door. Little did that mother know that destiny had just placed in her path someone who would change her life forever. Before we continue, I'd love to know where you're watching from today. And if you're enjoying these stories, make sure you're subscribed to the channel. The cold winter air hit Danielle and Michael as they stepped outside the glowing toy store. The laughter and music from inside were replaced with the sound of the wind rushing through the busy New York streets. Michael tugged at his mother's coat, his small face pale and eyes watery. "Mom, I don't need it. I don't want the toy anymore," he whispered, trying to be brave. Danielle's heart tightened. She bent down to his level, holding his face gently between her hands. "Michael, you deserve every joy in this world. Don't let anyone make you feel like you're not worthy." But her voice trembled. She couldn't stop the tears from forming. She quickly turned her face away, afraid her son would see her cry. They walked a few blocks in silence. The city lights sparkled, children ran past them holding shiny new toys, and every window seemed to remind Michael of what he couldn't have. Finally, Michael stopped. His small chest heaved, and he broke into sobs. "It's not fair, Mommy. Why do they treat us like that?" Danielle crouched down again, hugging him tightly as the tears rolled down his cheeks. Because some people don't see with their hearts, my love. They only see what's on the outside. But listen to me. You are not less than anyone. Never forget that. Her words were strong, but inside, Danielle felt crushed. She questioned everything. Was she failing as a mother? Would her son always suffer because of the color of his skin? Because of their poverty? As she held Michael, passers-by walked around them. Some gave sympathetic glances, others simply ignored them. But one pair of eyes lingered. Across the street, leaning casually against a sleek black car, the same man from the store watched. His expression was unreadable, but his jaw tightened as if containing a deep anger. His driver approached him. "Mr. Anderson, are we leaving?" The man didn't answer immediately. His gaze remained locked on Danielle and her son. Finally, he said quietly, "Not yet. There's something I need to see." Danielle, unaware she was being watched, pulled herself together. She wiped Michael's tears and forced a smile. "Come on, sweetheart, let's go home. I'll make your favorite soup tonight." Michael sniffled and nodded, clinging to her hand. As they walked away, the mysterious man's eyes softened. A memory seemed to flash in his mind, a young version of himself, hungry, rejected, treated like he didn't belong. For him, this wasn't just another random injustice. It was personal. And though Danielle didn't know it yet, her pain was about to shake the world. The city never stopped moving. Yellow taxis honked impatiently, holiday shoppers carried bags stuffed with luxury goods, and the icy wind pushed people forward as if New York itself didn't allow anyone to stand still. But he stood still. Across the street, the man in the tailored gray coat remained motionless, his sharp eyes following Danielle and Michael as they disappeared into the night crowd. His driver shifted uneasily beside the polished black car. "Sir, are you sure you don't want to head to the meeting?" the driver asked cautiously. The man's expression didn't change. His voice was calm, almost too calm. "Cancel it." The driver blinked, startled. "But, Mr. Anderson, it's with the board members. They've been waiting for weeks." The man finally turned his gaze away from the crowd and back to his driver. His steel-gray eyes held an authority that silenced all objections. "I said cancel it." Without another word, he slipped into the back seat of the car, but instead of giving an address, he simply leaned back and closed his eyes, lost in thought. Inside his mind, old memories began to stir. He was no longer the powerful billionaire that newspapers praised for building an empire. He was just a boy again. A boy standing in a shabby store decades ago, watching his mother beg a shopkeeper to let her buy a pair of shoes on credit. He remembered the sneers, the whispered insults, the humiliation, and most of all, he remembered how small and powerless he felt. Now, years later, he had more power than those people could ever imagine, but the pain of that memory had never left him. It was buried deep, waiting for moments like this to resurface. He opened his eyes, his jaw set with determination. "Driver," he said firmly, "find out everything you can about that woman and her son." The driver hesitated. "That may take some time, sir. We don't even know her name." Mr. Anderson's lips curved in the faintest trace of a smile that wasn't warm but sharp, resolute. "You'll figure it out. Money makes the impossible possible. And I want results by tomorrow." The driver nodded, intimidated. "Yes, sir." As the car pulled into the stream of traffic, Mr. Anderson glanced once more through the frosted window at the bustling street. The image of Danielle holding her crying child was etched in his mind, like a painting he couldn't erase. He whispered softly to himself, so quietly that even the driver couldn't hear. No mother should cry like that, not in front of her child. Outside, the world went on as if nothing had happened. But for Mr. Anderson, something had shifted. And soon, the lives of a humble mother and her little boy were about to collide with unimaginable power. The next morning, the winter sun struggled to break through the gray clouds that blanketed New York. Danielle woke up early as she always did. The small apartment was cold, The old heater rattled but gave little warmth. She tiptoed into the kitchen, careful not to wake Michael, who was curled up under a thin blanket on the couch. Their apartment had only one bedroom, and Danielle had long ago given it to her son. She herself slept on a fold-out mattress near the kitchen. As she boiled water for instant oatmeal, she looked at her worn-out wallet on the counter. Inside were just a few crumpled bills. Payday was still 3 days away, and she wasn't sure how she'd make it stretch. Her chest tightened as she remembered the humiliation from the toy store. She had replayed the moment all night, the sneer of the manager, the sting of being told she wasn't a real customer. She whispered to herself, almost like a prayer, "Lord, I don't ask for riches. I just ask for strength. Strength to raise my son with dignity." Just then, a soft knock at the door startled her. Danielle frowned. She rarely had visitors. Opening the door, she found a delivery man standing with a clipboard. "Ms. Danielle Thomas?" "Yes, that's me," she replied cautiously. The man smiled. "I have a package for you. Please sign here." Danielle blinked in confusion. She hadn't ordered anything. With hesitant hands, she scribbled her signature and took the large box. Michael, awakened by the commotion, rubbed his eyes and shuffled over. "Mommy, what is it?" Together, they opened the box on the kitchen table. Inside, wrapped in shimmering paper, was a brand new toy car with remote control, the exact model Michael had dreamed of. Michael gasped, his little hands trembling with excitement. "Mommy, it's the same one. It's the car." Danielle's heart pounded. She reached into the box and found an envelope taped to the side. Inside was a simple card, typed neatly. "Every child deserves to smile. This is just the beginning." No signature, no name. Danielle's hands shook as she read it. Her first instinct was suspicion. Who would send this? Why to her? But when she looked at Michael's glowing face, all questions faded. Her son was smiling wider than she had seen in months, his joy pure and uncontainable as he turned on the car and watched it race across the floor. Tears filled her eyes. She whispered again, almost to herself, "Thank you, Lord. Whoever did this, thank you." But across the city, in a glass skyscraper office that overlooked Manhattan, Mr. Anderson leaned back in his leather chair. His assistant had just confirmed the delivery was successful. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, he gazed at the city below. "Let's see how far this kindness can go," he murmured. For Danielle, the mysterious gift was a miracle. For Mr. Anderson, it was just the first move in a plan that would soon shake both of their lives. The city woke up under a pale winter sky. In Danielle's small apartment, the heater rattled like an old train trying to keep up with the cold. Michael was already on the floor with his new remote control car, guiding it around couch legs and chair legs as if he were racing through a miniature city. He laughed. It was the kind of laughter that reached a mother's bones. Danielle stood by the stove, stirring oatmeal, watching the little car zip by like a streak of hope across a crowded life. She smiled, then breathed out the smile like a prayer. "Thank you," she whispered. At the diner where she worked the breakfast shift, the doorbell chimed nonstop. Steam rose from pancakes and coffee pots. Tired nurses came in with the night still clinging to their scrubs. A delivery driver counted coins for his eggs. An elderly woman in a red knit hat warmed her hands around a mug and watched the world as if it were a snow globe she'd once known by heart. "Morning, Miss D," called Eddie, the short-order cook with a voice like gravel and kindness to match. "Morning," she answered, tying her apron and moving table to table with practiced grace. No matter how heavy life felt, she made a point to greet each person as if they mattered, because to her, they did. The woman in the red hat caught her sleeve softly as Danielle refilled her coffee. "Child," the woman said, studying her face, "you're carrying something, but I see light around you. Don't be afraid when good things knock on the door." Danielle blinked back a sudden sting of tears. "Thank you," she said. "I'll try." At 10:30, a sleek black car slid to the curb outside like a shadow deciding to rest. The diner's bell chimed again. A tall man in a dark coat entered, scanned the room, and walked straight to the counter. "Excuse me," he said politely to the hostess. I'm looking for Ms. Danielle Thomas. Danielle felt her stomach flip. The man was not the stranger from the toy store, but the driver who had stood beside him. His expression was formal, careful, almost apologetic. That's me, Danielle said, steadying the tray in her hands. He offered a tasteful ivory card with a single embossed name, Anderson, an address, a time. Mr. Anderson requests a brief conversation. At your convenience, the driver added, lowering his voice. He would like to apologize to you in person. Danielle looked at the card, felt the weight of the last 24 hours pressing on her. An anonymous gift, a mysterious note. Now this? I have my shift, she said, and my son after school. We can arrange a ride. There will be no obligations, Ms. Thomas, the driver said. Only a conversation. You are free to say no. Eddie leaned out from the kitchen pass, arching an eyebrow. You okay, Dee? She nodded faintly. Yes. Then to the driver, quietly. I'll come after I clock out. The driver inclined his head. We'll be waiting. By late afternoon, the sky was the color of ash, and snow threads drifted down lazily. Danielle stood in the marble lobby of a glass tower that seemed to rise into the clouds. She felt out of place in her sensible winter coat and scuffed boots, but the security guard treated her with a respect she wasn't used to. Instructions were already on file, her name on a list, a guest badge prepared with the same care as a CEO's. In the elevator, mirrored walls reflected a nervous woman who had learned to survive storms and still braid her son's hope each morning. She pressed her lips together and whispered, Lord, go before me. At the top floor, the doors opened to a quiet world of wood and steel and glass. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed Manhattan like a living painting. A receptionist in a navy suit rose with a practiced smile. Ms. Thomas? Mr. Anderson is expecting you. They led her down a corridor and into an office large enough to be a small chapel. He stood with his back to the door, looking out over the city. When he turned, Danielle recognized him, the man from the toy store. Silver hair, steady eyes, a presence like a winter river, beautiful, but cold until you knew how deep it ran. Ms. Thomas, he said, voice warm, measured. Thank you for coming. She nodded, clutching her purse strap, suddenly aware of how small her life felt inside a room like this. You sent the toy, didn't you? A brief smile tugged at his mouth. I did. Forgive the secrecy. I wanted your son to have his joy without the noise of a name attached. Every child deserves to smile. He gestured to a chair. Please sit. She did, but kept her back straight, her caution intact. People didn't cross a city to do good for no reason. Why? She finally asked. Why are you doing this? He sat across from her, elbows on the armrests, fingers steepled. Because I watched what happened to you yesterday, and it awakened something that never truly slept. He held her gaze. My mother and I were poor. People underestimated us, humiliated us. It stays with you, especially when a child is watching. No mother should cry like that. Her throat tightened. He continued, gentle but firm. My name is Samuel Anderson. Most people know me from the headlines and assume money made me blind. It didn't. It sharpened my eyes. I also have a controlling interest in a conglomerate. One of our recent acquisitions, he paused, is the parent company of Playtown, the chain that owns the store you visited. Danielle's fingers loosened on the purse strap. The words fell like puzzle pieces she didn't know she was holding. You own the company? I own a majority stake through my holdings, he said simply. Which means I own the responsibility. What you went through under that roof is my business, not because of press or optics, but because culture starts at the top. I'm here to make it right. Not privately. Properly. He pressed a discreet button on his desk. A side door opened, and a woman in a gray suit entered with a file folder. This is Ms. Patel, he said. Compliance and ethics. She's been with me for 12 years. I trust her with my name. Ms. Patel greeted Danielle with a respectful nod. then placed the folder on the table and opened it. Inside were printed pages, stills from security footage, and typed statements. "We pulled last evening's security feeds," Ms. Patel said softly. She turned a page. A frame froze the sneer on the manager's face, the set of Danielle's jaw, the fear in Michael's eyes. Danielle looked away, her breath catching. "Please," Mr. Anderson said, voice low. "We will never show anything without your permission, but I need you to know that you are not crazy, and you are not alone. The tape tells the truth." A beat passed. The city below moved like a clock that did not care about bruised hearts. Inside the quiet room, a mother pressed her lips together until she could speak. What do you want from me?" she asked. "Do you need me to sign something? I won't lie for anyone." "I wouldn't ask you to," he said. "There is no payment here for silence. If anything, I will ask for your voice." He leaned forward. "Tomorrow morning at 9, I will be at that store with the regional leadership team. No press. Not yet. I want you to tell them in your words what happened. I want the manager and the clerk to hear you. And I want them to see the consequences of their choices." Danielle stared at him. "Consequences?" "Immediate suspension pending investigation," Ms. Patel said professionally. "Mandatory retraining for all staff on anti-discrimination and dignity in customer care. A public apology from the company. And reparations, not as hush money but as an acknowledgement of harm." Mr. Anderson added, "I will offer what I wish someone had offered my mother. Stability. We've drafted 3 options for you." He nodded to Ms. Patel, who slid a second folder across the table. Danielle opened it cautiously. Inside were clean, simple pages. Option A. 1 year of rent assistance, a savings match, and a guaranteed interview track in any Anderson-affiliated company she chose to pursue. Option B. A paid scholarship for culinary certification, Danielle's long-buried dream, plus seed capital for a small bakery kiosk once she graduated. Option C. A trust fund for Michael's education with mentorship and summer learning programs. "We can mix elements," Ms. Patel said. "You choose. And if you choose none, we will still proceed with corporate accountability." Tears blurred the words. Danielle closed the folder and pressed a hand to her chest. "Why me?" she whispered. "There are so many like me." Mr. Anderson's voice softened. "Because Providence puts names in front of us. Yesterday it put yours in front of mine. I can't fix the whole world today, but I can start with what I saw. Scripture says a just scale is the Lord's delight. I intend to balance this scale." Silence held the room for a tender heartbeat. Danielle breathed in, breathed out. I'm grateful," she said, "but I'm also scared. If people find out, kids can be cruel. I don't want Michael hurt." "You will control the story," Mr. Anderson said. "We will shield your privacy until you decide differently. If and when this becomes public, it will be because you opened the door, not because someone kicked it in." Her shoulders relaxed slightly. She nodded. "Then I'll come. I'll speak." Something in Mr. Anderson's face eased, like a stone being set down. "Thank you." He stood, and so did she. "My driver will pick you up at 8:30. Bring Michael if you prefer. Or we can arrange a trusted sitter on site. Whatever keeps you at peace." "I'll bring him," Danielle said. "He should see that adults can do the right thing." "Then tomorrow," he said, offering his hand. She shook it, surprised by the steadiness of her own grip. "Tomorrow we begin." Outside, the wind cut sharper, but Danielle felt warmer than she had in a long time. On the sidewalk, the driver opened the car door for her with the same courtesy he might offer royalty. As she slid in, a young reporter with a too bright smile and a cameraman trailing behind hurried toward them. "Ms. Thomas? Danielle Thomas?" the reporter called, breath puffing in the cold. "Do you have a comment about the incident at Playtown? Sources say—" The driver stepped between them, calm and immovable. "No comment," he said, guiding the door closed gently. Danielle's heart thudded. She looked back at the skyscraper. Up there, somewhere above the cold, stood a man who could crush a city with a careless decision. But he had chosen something else. He had chosen to pick up a broken moment and set it upright. Back in the apartment that evening, Michael showed her how the little car could climb a book propped up like a ramp. "Look, Mommy, it can fly." She laughed, genuine and light. Then she knelt to his level. "Sweetheart, tomorrow we're going back to the store. There will be grown-ups there who need to hear the truth. You'll stay close to me, okay?" Michael's eyes searched hers. "Will they be mean again?" She cupped his face. "No, not this time." A pause. A promise. "God is with us. And this time the right people are watching." When he fell asleep, Danielle sat at the kitchen table with the 3 options spread before her. The quiet hummed. She traced the edges of option B, culinary school, seeing for a brief second the scent of cinnamon and warm bread, a small counter with her name on it, a bell over the door, Michael doing homework in the corner. She pressed the paper to her chest and closed her eyes. "Don't let fear make me small," she whispered. "Lead me." The clock on the stove ticked toward midnight. Somewhere across the city, Mr. Anderson stood in his window, hands in his pockets, mind already arranging the morning. HR, regional leadership, legal. No cameras, not yet. Dignity first, then repair, then, if needed, revelation. He had built an empire learning where to put pressure and when to give grace. Tomorrow he would do both. Morning would come quickly. A manager would answer a phone he'd rather ignore. A clerk would replay a smirk and wish it could be taken back. Doors would open. Words would be said. Scales would shift. And a mother who had been told she wasn't a real customer would walk back into the place that hurt her, head high, hands steady around her little boys, knowing this time the ground would not be stolen from under her feet, because justice had been invited to the room. Snow dusted the sidewalks like sifted sugar as the city yawned awake. The toy store sat on the corner with its lights off, a bright kingdom waiting to be opened. Inside, employees gathered in the quiet, their voices low, their faces tense. Signs still sparkled from the holiday displays, but the air had changed. It felt like a church before a verdict. At 8:45 a.m., a black car rolled to the curb. Danielle stepped out, holding Michael's hand. He wore his one good sweater and held himself a little taller than he had yesterday. "Remember," she whispered, squeezing his fingers. "Truth is not rude. It is strong." The doors unlocked. A regional director, Ms. Lopez, met them at the entrance with Ms. Patel at her side. "Ms. Thomas," Ms. Lopez said softly, "thank you for coming. And Michael, welcome." They walked through the aisles that had once felt like a maze of shame. Today the lights were bright, but the store was closed to customers, locked for a private meeting. Near the registers, staff stood in a semicircle. Cashiers, stock workers, 2 assistant managers, and the store manager with the ironed shirt and stiff jaw, the same man who had shamed Danielle. His name tag read, G. Whitmore. At the far end stood Samuel Anderson, hands in his coat pockets, gaze steady and calm. He nodded once as Danielle approached, as if marking the moment like a page in a book. "Good morning," he said to the room. "We're here for truth. We will handle it with dignity." No microphones, no cameras, just the people who had been there and the ones who held the power to set it right. Ms. Patel spoke first, crisp but kind. "We will listen. Ms. Thomas will share what happened. Then we will review facts. Then we will decide on actions. No one will be shamed in this room, but no harm will be denied either." Silence spread like a sheet of clean linen. Danielle let go of the purse strap she had been squeezing and took a breath. The words were waiting. They had been waiting since she'd learned how to swallow insults without choking. "Yesterday," she began, "I came here to buy my son a toy car. I had saved money from tips. We walked in with hope." Her eyes flicked just once toward Michael. "Your clerk looked at my coat and my skin before he looked at my face. Your manager said I wasn't a real customer. He said this wasn't for just anyone. I left because my son's heart was breaking in the middle of your floor. I left because I was not going to let him see me beg. The clerk, young, cheeks blotched with nerves, shifted on his feet. The manager stared at a spot over Danielle's shoulder, the way a man stares at a storm and insists it's only rain. Ms. Lopez turned to the staff. Anyone want to speak before we review evidence? The clerk swallowed. I'm sorry, he blurted. I didn't mean. I was just following the manager's lead. He said to focus on high-value customers. His voice wavered. I shouldn't have laughed. I did. I'm sorry. Eyes turned to Whitmore, his jaw flexed. We have policies, he said. This is a flagship store in a high-traffic area. We manage loss prevention. We triage. If I offended you, ma'am, that's unfortunate, but I was protecting the brand. Mr. Anderson's voice cut through like a clean blade through rope. Protecting the brand is not a permission slip to humiliate a mother. Whitmore's cheeks flared. With respect, Mr. Anderson, you weren't here. I was, Anderson said quietly. The room seemed to tilt an inch. Whitmore blinked. Anderson continued, I watched, from aisle 6. The brand we protect is not a price tag. It's the value we put on people. Ms. Patel opened the folder. We requested internal footage for the moments in question. She turned to Danielle. We will not show anything you don't consent to, Ms. Thomas. We only ask permission to show it here, to these parties. Danielle looked at Michael. He nodded, small and brave. You can show it, she said. A tablet screen lit up. No sound. The silent film told a loud truth. The set of Danielle's shoulders, the clerk's smirk, the manager's dismissive gesture, the boy's small hand clutching his mother's. The room watched itself in a mirror it couldn't argue with. When it ended, no one spoke. Then, very softly, Michael lifted his head and said, It hurt. It was the simplest testimony, and the hardest to hear. Ms. Lopez's voice held. Thank you, Michael. Mr. Anderson turned to Whitmore. Do you wish to correct your statement? Whitmore's posture wavered, then stiffened again. I regret that the child felt hurt, he said, picking words like a man trying not to step in wet cement. But I was working within. Enough, Anderson said, not unkindly. We are done wrapping cruelty in policy. He faced the whole staff. Here is what will happen. You could feel the room lean in. Effective immediately, Anderson said. Mr. Whitmore is suspended without pay pending termination review for violation of company values and for creating a hostile environment. The cashier on duty will be suspended with pay pending retraining and a probationary period. His conduct was wrong, but he is 22 and will be given a chance to learn. Everyone else in this store, every single person, will complete a dignity and service program before week's end. Not a video. A real training with real reflection. We will close this location for one full day to do it right. Whitmore's face went a shade paler. Termination? For protecting. For harming, Anderson said, his tone final. We do not fire people for mistakes. We fire them for refusing to see the human being in front of them. He turned to Danielle. His voice gentled. Miss Thomas, the company will issue a public apology, reviewed by you, acknowledging the harm done. We will also make reparations. You are considering options for your family. Those stand. Separately, the company will fund a community toy and book day at the neighborhood center 2 blocks from here. No cameras, no speeches, just doors open and children choosing with dignity. We will also partner with local groups to create a customer advisory council so that voices like yours help shape our policies, not just react to our failures. Danielle's hand shook as she covered her mouth. Not tears of humiliation, tears of relief, of something loosening inside that had been clenched for years. Thank you, she managed. Anderson nodded once. There's more. Beginning today, this chain will adopt what we're calling the Dignity First standard. It is simple. Greet every guest, look them in the eye, listen with patience, and never assume someone's worth by their wallet or their wardrobe. Loss prevention is real. So is grace. We will teach both. Ms. Lopez stepped forward with 2 documents. Mr. Whitmore, she said calmly, please surrender your keys and access fob. HR will meet you in the back office. The manager stood frozen for a beat. Pride wars are quiet until they break. His shoulders caved an inch. He reached into his pocket, set the keys down, and stared hard at the countertop, as if it had personally betrayed him. I gave 10 years to this store, he said. For what? For people, Ms. Lopez answered gently. That's always been the answer. He swallowed, eyes flicking once toward Danielle and then away. I shouldn't have said what I said, he forced out, the words tasting like metal. The apology stuck. He pushed past it, not ready to be small enough to be forgiven. He walked toward the back without looking up. The clerk stepped forward instead, voice shaking. Ms. Thomas. I'm sorry, he said. I thought I was being funny. I wasn't. I was cruel. I know it doesn't fix anything, but I am truly sorry. He looked down at Michael. Kid, you deserved better. Michael studied him, then glanced at his mother. Danielle nodded once. Thank you for saying it, she told the clerk. Now show it with the way you treat the next family. Something like resolve flickered in the young man's eyes. Yes, ma'am. Mr. Anderson turned to the team. We will reopen at noon. Before we do, we will fix one more thing. He looked at the wall behind the registers, posters of shiny toys and even shinier price tags. We will create a quiet corner, a soft space near the entrance where no one is judged for standing still. A place where a mother can breathe while a child looks. Add a sign, you belong here. Heads nodded. A stock associate, older, with kind eyes, raised his hand timidly. Sir, I grew up in this neighborhood. I can help set it up. My sister runs the community center. Then you just got a budget, Anderson said. Make it beautiful. The room exhaled, the air filled with the sound of people starting over. Ms. Patel approached Danielle with a printed statement. We drafted a public apology for your review. We will not release anything without your approval. We can keep your name private or include it with your consent. Danielle read. The words were not pretty. They were plain and honest. We failed. We harmed. We will repair. She nodded. You can release it. Keep my son's name out of it. Mine can stay. Of course, Ms. Patel said. Before we reopen, Anderson said, there is one more voice we need to hear. He turned to Michael. Young man, would you help us with a new rule? What do you think every store should remember? Michael stared at the floor, thinking hard. Then he looked up. Don't make moms cry, he said simply. And don't laugh at people. A murmur moved through the staff. Some smiled, some lowered their eyes. Truth from a child is a plumb line, straight and merciful. Then let's print it, Anderson said, right by the quiet corner. They dispersed to their tasks. Shelves straightened, signs came down. A small armchair was wheeled in from the office. Someone brought a basket of children's books. The young clerk taped a handwritten note above the chair until the nicer sign could arrive. You belong here. By noon, the lights glowed warm. The doors unlocked. The first customers trickled in. A grandfather with a cane, a mother with twin toddlers, a teen saving for a model kit. They were welcomed with the kind of welcome that doesn't check pockets first. Danielle lingered by the entrance with Michael, unsure whether to stay. Mr. Anderson joined them, not as a ruler inspecting a realm, but as a man who had promised something and meant to keep it. There's a bell at the register, Ms. Lopez said, smiling toward Michael. Every day, the first child who comes in gets to ring it so we all remember why we're here. Would you like to do it, Michael? He looked to Danielle. She nodded. He walked to the counter, reached up, and rang the small brass bell. The sound was bright and clean, and it seemed to shake something loose in the walls. People clapped. Not many. Enough. A woman by the door, gray hair pulled into a tidy bun, eyes kind, watched the scene with wet lashes. She took out her phone, not to shout, not to shame, but to remember. The world would learn soon enough, for now it was enough that this corner knew. Danielle turned to Mr. Anderson. I've decided, she said, voice steady. Option B, culinary training. I want to build something that smells like home. A smile warmed his eyes. Then we will build it. We'll enroll you this week and set up the stipend. When you're ready, we'll open the kiosk in the spring. Your menu, your name. She laughed, surprised by how real it sounded. My name, on a sign. On a sign, he said. And when customers come, you will greet them like you do, with eyes that see them. A few hours later, Danielle and Michael stepped back into the soft winter light. The store behind them buzzed with a new rhythm. The quiet corner had a line of little readers. The clerk, chastened and sincere, knelt to help a child reach a toy on the higher shelf. Ms. Lopez walked the floor with sleeves rolled and a checklist that looked more like a promise than a policy. On the sidewalk, Danielle stopped. Snow flurries danced in the air. Michael looked up, grinning. Mommy, can my car drive in the snow? We'll try it in the hallway at home, she said, ruffling his hair. No puddles for now. They laughed. It was the kind of laugh that isn't loud, but lasts. Across the street, a small knot of people had gathered around the storefront window, reading the taped apology letter. Some nodded. One woman placed her hand over her heart. Word would travel, the way truth does, at first like a whisper, and then like a wind. In his office later that evening, Samuel Anderson signed the last document of the day. The apology went live on the company website. Phone calls were returned. He stood by the window and let the city glitter without asking anything from it. He remembered his mother's hands cracked from too much work, gentle anyway. He remembered a boy's vow to never let another mother stand alone in her shame if he could help it. Tonight, a piece of that vow had been kept. Just scales, he murmured. Let them stay honest. Somewhere across town, Danielle laid out a notebook on her kitchen table and wrote menu ideas at the top. Cinnamon rolls, chicken pot pie, apple hand pies for after school. She circled one word. Home. Michael fell asleep with the remote control car parked neatly beside his pillow, like a tiny red promise. Justice had knocked on a door that used to belong only to fear. The door opened. And the story, though it had bent, refused to break. Tomorrow, the world would hear. The apology letter posted quietly on the company's website late that evening. No banners, no headlines, just a simple page with plain words. We failed. We harmed. We humiliated a mother and her child. We are sorry. We will repair. We will do better. It might have stayed hidden among corporate press releases, except that someone had taken a picture of the letter taped inside the toy store window. That image spread like fire. By morning, phones buzzed from coast to coast. By noon, news anchors read the apology live on television. But it wasn't the company name that captured hearts. It was the face of Danielle, caught in a candid photo someone had snapped the moment Michael rang the brass bell at the register. In the picture, her eyes were wet but proud, her son smiling beside her. Beneath it, someone had written 3 words that echoed everywhere. You belong here. Within hours, hashtags lit up. You belong here. Justice for Danielle. Dignity first. At the diner, Danielle nearly dropped a tray when a customer whispered, "That's her." She felt her cheeks heat, but then the woman reached out and squeezed her hand. "Thank you," the stranger said, "for standing up. You stood for all of us." By lunchtime, reporters swarmed outside the toy store. Camera crews filled the sidewalk. Anderson had avoided them for as long as possible, but when microphones crowded his car window, he finally stepped out, coat collar turned against the cold. "Mr. Anderson, why intervene personally? Why not let PR handle this?" He looked directly into the lens. "Because dignity is not a press release, it is a decision. I was in the store. I saw a child watch his mother be humiliated. I decided that would not be the last word." Another reporter shouted, "What do you say to critics who claim this is a publicity stunt?" Anderson's eyes sharpened. "I say I don't care about optics. I care about scales. Justice is a scale, and yesterday it was broken. Today we balance it. This is not charity. This is responsibility. The clip aired that evening, replayed 1,000 times. Some viewers wept. Others raged at the injustice. Emails poured in. Parents shared their own stories of humiliation in stores, banks, offices. It felt like a curtain had been pulled back. And in the middle of it all, Danielle tried to live one ordinary day at a time. 2 weeks later, she stood outside a vocational school, application in her hand. The scholarship papers had been signed. Culinary training would begin in the spring. Michael held her hand as they walked inside. "Mommy, will you really open a bakery?" he asked, wide-eyed. "Yes, baby," she said, her voice firm for the first time in years. "A bakery with cinnamon rolls and pies and bread that smells like hope." He grinned. "And can I help?" "You'll be my first assistant," she promised. Behind them, a small group of people had gathered. Not reporters this time, but neighbors who had seen her story online. They clapped softly as Danielle stepped inside. Some carried notes. Some carried nothing but eyes full of respect. "You spoke for us," one elderly man said. "Don't stop now." Far away, in an office high above the city, Samuel Anderson closed his laptop. The world had made noise of what began in silence, but for once, he didn't feel the need to control it. He thought of his mother's hands again, how they had always smelled of bread, how they had folded in prayer every night no matter how little was on the table. He whispered to the empty room, "Mom, I kept my promise." The city lights winked back at him. Months later, a ribbon was cut in a tiny corner bakery painted warm yellow. Above the door hung a simple wooden sign, "Danielle's Kitchen, where you belong." Customers lined up around the block. Some came for the cinnamon rolls. Some came because they had seen her face on a screen and wanted to taste victory turned into bread. Michael worked the register, proud as any boy could be. Danielle stood behind the counter, apron dusted with flour, hair tied back, heart wide open. She greeted every customer the same way, with eyes that saw them. When the first tray sold out, she stepped outside for a breath. The sun cut through winter clouds, warm against her skin. She closed her eyes, lifted her chin, and let it rest there. "God," she whispered, "you didn't forget me. You didn't forget my son." The bell above the door jingled, laughter spilled onto the sidewalk, and Danielle smiled. Her story had started with humiliation. It ended with hope. And somewhere in the noise of the world, one truth rang clearer than all the rest. The powerful fall, the humble rise, and dignity is not for sale. Have you ever faced humiliation like Danielle? Share your story in the comments. Do you believe justice always arrives even if late? Write below. Remember, God does not abandon the just. Never lose hope. The good will always triumph.